Enter our gladiator, James Rosen, in Washington, D.C., taking a look at the possibility that there could be a very nasty Coliseum fight for control of the Republican presidential nomination. Take it from there, James.
That was such a spirited, extended metaphor, Neil. I hardly know what to do with myself. Well, listen, until now, it's mostly been journalists who have rhapsodized about a contested convention, chiefly because you'd have to have been present for the Democratic Convention of 1980, when Ted Kennedy launched that abortive bid to unseat the incumbent President Jimmy Carter as the nominee, to have covered such an event. Today, with GOP frontrunner Donald Trump steaming toward the 1,237 delegates needed to secure the Republican nomination, and only Texas Senator Ted Cruz yet in a position to blunt that progress, it is the so-called Republican establishment, which loathes Ted Cruz only marginally less than Donald Trump, that is most actively considering changes to the convention rules to engineer some other nominee.
I think it would be absolutely catastrophic to have a brokered convention where they try to parachute in some D.C. establishment candidate. You would see an open revolt. And it would all but concede the election to Hillary Clinton. The voters need to decide this.
At the 2012 Republican convention that nominated Mitt Romney, the rules were changed to ensure that on the first ballot, no votes would be tallied for any candidate who hadn't won a majority of state delegations in at least 8 states. The move was designed to curb the influence of Ron Paul, and many delegates at the time were outraged that their votes for other candidates besides Romney weren't even counted.
I got to tell you that these campaigns are already courting delegates, talking to delegates. They're making their cases to these different delegates. They're well aware that this could end up in a convention.
Tonight on Special Report with Bret Baier at 6 Eastern on the Fox News Channel, I'll tell you which Beltway insiders are leading the charge to stop Donald Trump in Cleveland. Neil.
James, you're promoting an appearance on this show, Fox Business Network, on Fox News at 6 p.m., correct?
I like to think that there's a great collegiality among us. Perhaps I'm mistaken in that assumption, Neil?
Maybe, because I don't know if you're aware of the kerfuffle we have of my, well, prior to now, very good friend David Asman, who was a market analyst and taking a look at everything last night on our show, and suddenly he's the guy in the middle, one lucky guy, on outnumbered, and I dare say you're not a lot different. I mean, it's kind of weird, don't you think?
Kerfuffle, is that some Sicilian term with which I'm unfamiliar?
Trust me, it will be. So your thoughts on David Asman doing this? Because it appears blatantly opportunistic, if not shameless. But your plug for being on Bret's show at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, when our good friend Charles Payne has a show on this network to which you made no reference, which is fine. Is there a little bit of guilt on your part?
Do I get a lawyer at some point in this deal?
No. No, it's not a fair and balanced fighting venue.
Listen, I think the ladies of Outnumbered are very lucky to have David Asman, and I have been privileged to do that show once myself. And I've said right at the outset, you know, I've been watching the show since the beginning, and I'm very grateful to be the one lucky guy. One lucky guy.
Are you aware that David Asman is now trying out for Dances with the Stars?
I am not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, very good. Thank you. We're reaching out to David Asman to get his response. James Rosen making his last appearance on this show. Obviously, he'd much prefer to be with Bret Baier and those guys. That's fine by me.